One of the major reasons why the years 1871 to 1914 were so remarkably peaceful, despite rising nationalism, imperial rivalries, and rapid militarization, was the diplomatic skill of Otto von Bismarck, the architect of German unification. Although Bismarck had used aggression and war to create the German Empire, once Germany was unified, he wanted peace. He understood that another major European conflict could tear apart his newly formed country. So Bismarck devoted the rest of his career to preserving peace through diplomacy, especially through a complicated network of alliances designed to keep France isolated and to prevent conflicts from escalating. Unfortunately, this very web of alliances became so intricate and fragile that Bismarck's successors could not maintain it. Eventually, all it took was one crisis in the Balkans to bring the entire structure crashing down, leading directly to World War I. Let's highlight the key alliances Bismarck engineered. In 1879, he created the Dual Alliance, a secret defensive agreement between Germany and Austria-Hungary. Bismarck established this alliance because he feared that Russia, which was seeking greater influence in the Balkans, might eventually come into conflict with Austria-Hungary. Germany wanted to avoid a situation in which it would be forced to choose between the two powers if war broke out. Under the terms of the alliance, Germany promised to support Austria-Hungary if Russia attacked it, while Austria-Hungary agreed to support Germany if France attacked Germany. The treaty was kept secret to avoid provoking Russia and increasing tensions in Europe. The Dual Alliance marked Bismarck's first major step in creating a balanced system of alliances designed to maintain stability and protect Germany's security. In 1882, Bismarck expanded the Dual Alliance by bringing Italy into the agreement, creating what became known as the Triple Alliance. Italy had only recently unified in 1861 and was still considered a relatively weak power, but it had ambitions to become a major force in Europe. Joining the alliance gave Italy greater prestige and strengthened its position in international affairs. Under the terms of the Triple Alliance, Italy agreed not to seek Austrian territory populated by Italian-speaking people, while Germany and Austria-Hungary promised to assist Italy if France attacked it. For Italy, the alliance was an important diplomatic success that increased its influence, while for Bismarck, it served as another way to isolate France and reinforce the network of defensive alliances designed to preserve peace and protect Germany's security. In 1887, Bismarck negotiated the Reinsurance Treaty, a secret agreement between Germany and Russia to preserve good relations between the two powers despite Germany's existing alliances with Austria-Hungary and Italy. He understood that the Dual Alliance and Triple Alliance could make Russia feel threatened, and he was determined to prevent Germany from becoming trapped in a war against both Russia in the east and France in the west. Under the terms of the treaty, Germany and Russia agreed to remain neutral if either country was attacked by another power. The main exception was that Germany would not remain neutral if Russia attacked Austria-Hungary, since Germany was already committed to supporting its ally. The treaty was kept secret because Austria-Hungary might have felt betrayed if it learned that Germany had also made a neutrality agreement with Russia. The Reinsurance Treaty is often considered Bismarck's diplomatic masterpiece because it helped maintain peace and reduce the danger of Germany facing a costly two-front war. Everything changed in 1888 when Wilhelm II became Kaiser of Germany. That year, his grandfather, Wilhelm I, died and was succeeded by his son, Frederick III. Yet Frederick was already suffering from advanced laryngeal cancer when he ascended the throne, and his reign lasted only 99 days before his death at the age of 56. The crown then passed to his 29-year-old son. The new Kaiser was widely regarded as intelligent, energetic, and ambitious, but contemporaries often criticized him as impulsive, arrogant, and emotionally volatile. Beneath his confidence, many observers detected a deep sense of insecurity that would shape both his leadership style and Germany's future course. Eager to achieve personal glory and unwilling to remain in Bismarck's shadow, he frequently clashed with the aging chancellor over both domestic and foreign policy. These disagreements eventually led the new Kaiser to dismiss Bismarck in 1890, ending an era of cautious and skillful diplomacy. After Bismarck's departure, the Kaiser took a much more active role in directing Germany's foreign policy. However, His impulsive decisions and lack of diplomatic restraint quickly undermined the carefully balanced alliance system that Bismarck had built, contributing to growing tensions in Europe and setting the stage for future conflicts. One of Wilhelm's first major foreign policy mistakes was his decision not to renew the reinsurance treaty with Russia in 1890 after Bismarck's dismissal. Bismarck had carefully used the treaty to maintain friendly relations with Russia and prevent Germany from facing enemies on both its eastern and western borders. However, the Kaiser and his advisors believed the agreement was unnecessary and allowed it to expire. As a result, Russia felt isolated and threatened, especially by Germany's close ties with Austria-Hungary. Forced to seek a new ally, Russia turned to France, Germany's longtime rival. This led to the Franco-Russian alliance of the 1890s, ending France's diplomatic isolation and creating exactly the kind of two-front threat that Bismarck had worked so hard to avoid. In 1894, France and Russia formed a major military alliance that significantly altered the balance of power in Europe. The agreement stated that if Germany attacked either France or Russia, the other nation would come to its allies' aid and join the war. It also required France to mobilize its military if Austria-Hungary mobilized against Russia, strengthening the partnership between the two countries. This alliance represented a major diplomatic shift because it ended France's long period of international isolation, a situation that Bismarck had carefully maintained for more than 2 decades. By bringing together Germany's potential enemies on both its eastern and western borders, the Franco-Russian alliance created the very danger of a two-front war that Bismarck had worked tirelessly to prevent. For much of the 19th century, Britain had followed a policy of splendid isolation, avoiding permanent alliances and focusing on protecting its vast empire. However, Germany's rapid industrial growth, expanding navy, and increasingly aggressive foreign policy under Wilhelm II alarmed British leaders. In response, Britain began abandoning its traditional isolation and moved closer to Germany's rivals. The first major step was the Entente Cordiale of 1904, a series of agreements between Britain and France that resolved long-standing colonial disputes and improved relations between the two countries. Although it was not a formal military alliance, many Europeans recognized it as the beginning of a closer partnership. Britain strengthened this diplomatic shift even further in 1907 when it reached an agreement with Russia, leading to the formation of the Triple Entente, which united Britain, France, and Russia. While the Triple Entente was not initially a formal military alliance, it effectively brought the three powers together in opposition to Germany and its allies, creating two rival blocs that increasingly divided Europe in the years before World War I. Russia gradually deepened its support for Serbia, a small Slavic nation in the Balkans that was determined to expand its territory and resist the influence of Austria-Hungary. Russian leaders believed they had a special responsibility to protect fellow Slavic peoples, and they increasingly presented themselves as the defenders of Serbia, Bulgaria, and Slavic populations throughout southeastern Europe. This policy, known as Pan-Slavism, strengthened the relationship between Russia and Serbia, but also brought Russia into direct conflict with Austria-Hungary, which sought to maintain its dominance in the Balkans and prevent Serbian expansion. As Russian support for Serbia grew, Austria-Hungary viewed both countries as increasing threats to its stability and territorial integrity. These competing ambitions intensified rivalries in the Balkans and contributed to the rising tensions that would eventually help trigger World War I. By the eve of World War I, Europe had become divided into two hostile alliance systems, with nations bound together by treaties, military plans, and diplomatic commitments. On one side stood the Triple Alliance, consisting of Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Italy, although Italy's commitment to the alliance was often hesitant and uncertain. Opposing them was the Triple Entente, which brought together Britain, France, and Russia in a loose but powerful coalition. Beyond these major alliances, other countries were also drawn into the growing web of international rivalries. Serbia was closely aligned with Russia, relying on Russian support against Austria-Hungary, while Belgium maintained understandings with Britain concerning its neutrality and security. Across Europe, smaller nations were increasingly tied to the great powers through diplomatic promises, strategic interests, and detailed military agreements. As tensions mounted, each nation feared that its rivals might be preparing for war. In response, governments expanded their armies, strengthened alliances, and developed elaborate mobilization plans. Ironically, these measures were intended to preserve peace, but instead made a large-scale conflict more likely. Because the alliance system committed countries to support one another, a dispute involving only a few nations had the potential to draw all of Europe into war. By 1914, the continent resembled a powder keg waiting for a spark. All that was needed was a relatively small crisis to set the entire system in motion. That spark came in June 1914, when the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo triggered a chain reaction that ultimately plunged Europe into the First World War.